Imagine you're one of the biggest pop stars on the entire planet.
Right.
You've won every award, broken every record, and you basically set the cultural agenda for a whole generation. But right now you are sitting in a studio and you're just completely paralyzed by this massive, impenetrable wall of writer's block.
It's just completely stuck.
Exactly. And you're starting to genuinely wonder if you've, lost the spark forever.
Oh, that's terrifying.
It is. And the thing that finally breaks you out of this creative nightmare, the thing that unlocks the most vulnerable, soul-bearing confession of your entire career is, well, it's a piece of mass-produced molded plastic.
Which is just wild to think about.
Right. Welcome to another episode of People Pod. Today we're taking a deep dive into this really striking contradiction. Like, how does a song written specifically about a toy, a literal Barbie doll, end up becoming an intimately personal masterpiece?
I mean, it sounds like a punchline, doesn't it?
It really does.
Because we have this built-in assumption about commercial tie-ins, especially, when we're talking about massive summer blockbuster movies, we expect the music to be slick, heavily manufactured, maybe a bit cynical.
Yeah, designed to sell tickets and merch, basically.
Yeah, catchy, sure. Devastatingly human, almost never. But in this instance, the corporate assignment to write a song for a toy actually acted as this psychological Trojan horse.
Oh, I like that. A Trojan horse.
Yeah, it allowed genuine human vulnerability to just bypass the artist's defenses completely.
And that is exactly what we're unpacking today. We're looking at What Was I Made For by the American singer-songwriter Billie Eilish.
Such a phenomenal track.
Truly. And, if you've been anywhere near a radio, a streaming playlist, or a movie theater recently, you definitely know this song. It's that haunting, sob-inducing anchor of the 2023 Barbie movie.
Yeah, you really couldn't escape it.
But when you actually comb through the sources we have for this deep dive, like the production timelines, the interviews, the critical analyses, it becomes so clear that this story isn't really about a successful movie soundtrack at all.
No, not at all.
It's a masterclass in breaking creative paralysis. It's this deep exploration of that blurry line between the creator and the character.
Absolutely. It kind of forces us to completely rethink how artists channel personal trauma into their work. Because the standard narrative is, the artist has to look inward, right?
Right, like lock themselves in a room with a diary.
Exactly. Dig into their own pain and just bleed onto the page.
Mm.
But the genesis of this song proves that sometimes the only way to look inward is to force yourself to look completely outward.
Yeah. As I was reading through the background on how this came together, I kept thinking of this one specific comparison. What Eilish achieved here is basically method acting, but applied to songwriting.
Oh, that's a really interesting way to frame it.
Right. It's that weird phenomenon where the mask you put on, like the fictional character you're pretending to be, is the exact mechanism that strips away your defenses and reveals your true face.
That is a highly accurate way to look at the psychology at play here.
Yeah.
But to understand how that breakthrough actually happened, we need to set the scene back in early to mid-2023.
Okay, set the scene for us.
So the Barbie movie is on the horizon, and it's gearing up to be just an absolute cultural juggernaut.
Oh, the hype was unreal.
Unreal.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack is being carefully put together by Mark Ronson, who is, a legendary producer who knows exactly how to build that hype.
Yeah, he really does.
So in early July of that year, Ronson does an interview with Time magazine, and he starts playing coy, teasing that there are still these unannounced surprise artists on the soundtrack.
I remember that.
Yeah, and he specifically describes one of these mystery artists as having a very personal, idiosyncratic tie to Barbie.
Which was just the ultimate bait for fans, because he completely dodged the direct question when the interviewer asked if it was Billie Eilish.
Right, he wouldn't confirm it.
But the internet sleuths were already all over it. They were connecting the dots because she had posted this really subtle picture of a Barbie neon sign on her Instagram back in late June.
Yeah, they missed nothing.
So the public narrative was this fun, hyped-up pop mystery, but the private reality behind the scenes, long before that song was even conceived, was actually incredibly grim for Eilish and her brother, Finneas O'Connell, who is her co-writer and producer.
The contrast there is just severe. Because in a later interview with Billboard, Eilish really opened up about the extent of their struggle. She and Finneas were entrenched in this prolonged, suffocating period of writer's block.
Wow.
And if you look at the mechanics of writer's block for artists at that massive level, it's rarely just, a lack of ideas.
It's more about the pressure, right?
Exactly. It's almost always a byproduct of crushing self-doubt and the weight of expectation. When your previous work has literally defined a generation, The pressure of sitting down to write the next Billie Eilish song becomes paralyzing.
Every single lyric probably feels inadequate.
Yeah, that was the swamp they were stuck in.
I just need to pause and look at the sheer absurdity of the situation. You're creatively paralyzed, you're drowning in self-doubt, and then you get an invitation from Greta Gerwig, the director of Barbie.
No pressure at all.
Right. She
Right.
invites you to Warner Bros. Studios to watch a rough cut. And she isn't asking for, like, a fun pop anthem for a dance sequence. She needs the emotional anchor for the climax of the film.
The pivotal scene.
The incredibly heavy scene where Barbie meets the spirit of her creator, Ruth Handler, and basically has to confront the beautiful, terrible reality of human mortality.
It's such a tall order. Gerwig essentially asked them to score the existential awakening of a piece of plastic.
So if I'm in their shoes, that level of pressure, I mean, you have a massive corporate IP, a legendary director, $100 million budget, combined with your own existing writer's block, that just sounds like a recipe for a total psychological beatdown.
It really does.
How does that assignment not just bury them completely?
Well, because of this really fascinating quirk in human psychology. The immense pressure didn't bury them. It actually acted as the catalyst that shattered the block entirely.
Wait, really?
Yeah, and the timeline proves it. After months of being stuck, Eilish said they started writing the song on January 17th, 2023. And the core of it was written in just a few days.
Wow, just a few days.
They were in the studio recording it a mere 2 weeks later. So the dam didn't just break, it completely washed away.
But here's where I have to play devil's advocate for a second. Eilish had this quote about the writing process, where she claims that she didn't think about herself once while writing it.
Right, she was very adamant about that.
Not a single time. She insists she was purely inspired by the movie, by the character, and by how she imagined a doll would feel. I mean, isn't that just a really convenient, perfectly packaged PR narrative?
I can see why you think that.
Like, how is it psychologically possible to write something so devastatingly personal and not realize you're writing about yourself until days later?
I completely understand the skepticism. But from a psychological standpoint, it actually makes perfect sense. Think about what we just discussed regarding the root of her writer's block. The paralyzing pressure of being Billie Eilish.
Right.
The constraint of writing for a fictional doll provided this safe container. It was the ultimate ego bypass.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, if she sits down to write about her own depression, her internal critic screams, "This isn't good enough, everyone is going to analyze this." But if she tells herself, "I'm just writing a sad song for a movie character," the ego defense just drops entirely.
Okay, that makes so much sense. It kind of reminds me of how human vision works in the dark.
How so?
Like if you look straight at a really dim star in the night sky, it completely disappears because you're using the center of your eye. But if you shift your gaze and use your peripheral vision, the star suddenly comes into sharp focus.
That is a brilliant analogy.
So by looking at the fictional character of Barbie, she was using her creative peripheral vision, essentially, to access her own real trauma without blinding herself with her own ego.
Exactly. And the proof is in her own subsequent realization. So days after recording it, she was listening back to the track, and that peripheral vision shifted into direct focus.
She had the aha moment.
A massive revelation. She realized every single lyric she wrote for the doll was actually a subconscious mapping of her own struggles with fame, depression, and purpose.
That's incredible.
She famously admitted, "I'm writing for myself and I don't even know it." This corporate soundtrack assignment essentially tricked her into performing this deep therapeutic excavation of her own mind.
You know, if you're listening to this right now and you've ever felt completely stuck on a major project at work or even just a personal goal, what Eilish did here is basically a psychological hack.
It really is.
The moment the stakes were transferred to a proxy-like, the moment she was doing it for someone else, the paralysis vanished. And when you look at the lyrics with that context, the dual meaning is staggering. Like the line, "I used to float, now I just fall down."
The duality there is just perfectly constructed.
Yeah.
Because on a literal level, it describes a plastic doll that previously floated magically from her dream house to her car, suddenly experiencing the harsh reality of human gravity.
Which happens in the movie.
Right. But on a subconscious level, it is a young woman describing the onset of clinical depression, the loss of buoyancy, the sudden crushing weight of reality.
And that realization that she had inadvertently written this confession about her own manufactured pop star identity, that leads us perfectly to the visual representation of the song.
Oh, the music video.
Yeah, because you cannot sing about being a doll trapped in a box without eventually showing us the box. The music video dropped on July 13th, 2023, the same day as the single, and it brings this entire psychological metaphor right into the physical world.
The visual execution is so critical here, especially because Eilish directed the video herself.
Oh, she directed it.
She did. So we aren't seeing a hired director's interpretation. We are getting a pure, unfiltered look at her own intent. And she chose a highly demanding technical constraint. The entire video is shot in one single continuous take.
Wow, so no cuts to hide behind at all.
None. The viewer is forced into this very stark, uninterrupted intimacy with her.
For those trying to picture it, the setting is incredibly minimalist. She's just sitting alone at this classic wooden school desk in a completely empty, monochromatic room.
Very stripped down.
But it's her styling that immediately signals the theme. She doesn't look like the modern pop star we know. She has physically transformed into the toy.
Right. She's wearing that soft yellow dress.
Which is a totally deliberate Easter egg because it matches the dress stereotypical Barbie wears in the final humanizing scenes of the movie.
Exactly.
And she has this rigid 1950s blonde wig with heavy bangs and a high ponytail, which directly references the original 1959 Barbie.
So she has completely adopted the proxy visually. But the true narrative mechanism of the video begins when she pulls out this vintage-looking, Barbie-themed carrying case and starts unpacking miniature, doll-sized clothing.
And here's the twist. She isn't unpacking Barbie's famous outfits. She's unpacking miniature replicas of her own past iconic public looks.
Yeah, it's so clever.
Like the oversized baggy shorts, the neon green and black hair era outfits, the specific red carpet designer gowns. She takes them out and starts meticulously, almost desperately, trying to organize her own past onto a tiny miniature hanging rack on the desk.
It's a profound piece of physical acting, because the environment absolutely refuses to let her curate her history in peace. As the song builds, chaos intrudes.
The weather starts turning against her.
Yes. First, a subtle earthquake rattles the desk, knocking the tiny clothes off their little hangers. Then, a massive wind starts blowing across the set. And finally, actual rain begins pouring down on her from the ceiling.
It's honestly like watching someone try to pack their own massive, sprawling pop culture mythology into a neat, tiny little box, while a literal hurricane tries to blow their past away.
That's exactly what it feels like.
She's desperately trying to hang on to these perfectly curated eras of her life, but the elements are just destroying the illusion of control. By the end of the song, she's soaking wet, the rack is a mess, and she just gives up. She frantically shoves handfuls of her tiny, iconic outfits back into the case, snaps it shut, and just walks off camera.
And that physical struggle actually spawned two distinct, incredibly revealing schools of interpretation among cultural critics.
Oh, really? How did people read it?
Well, Matthew Velasco at W Magazine viewed the struggle through the lens of personal branding and fashion evolution. He read the act of packing away the miniature clothes as a definitive visual statement. Basically, the baggy era is over.
Okay, I see.
To him, the video was a burial of her past aesthetics and the necessary, albeit painful, birth of a new artistic era.
I mean, I can see that reading, but it feels a bit light, like it's just about changing your wardrobe. But Walden Green, writing for The Fader, he had a much darker and frankly more compelling interpretation, didn't he?
He did, yeah. Green's analysis looked at the underlying mechanics of the music industry itself. He interpreted the video, and the song by extension, as a deeply cynical commentary on how pop stars are manufactured.
Right.
In the modern music industry, artists are routinely compartmentalized into highly curated eras to sell a specific narrative, to sell merch, to sell a brand.
Yeah, everything is so packaged.
Exactly. So Green saw Eilish organizing those tiny outfits as a metaphor for the label-driven commodification of her own life.
Yeah.
She is the doll, and her past traumas and triumphs are just outfits to be bought and sold.
Oh, that's heavy. And that tension between trying to maintain the neat, profitable illusion of the pop star era and the messy, chaotic reality of actually being a human being, it isn't just visual. That exact conflict is literally baked into the sheet music.
It really is.
When you actually listen to the mechanics of how this song is constructed, it actively rebels against everything a blockbuster movie anthem is supposed to do. Eilish even warned her fans on social media before it dropped, telling them to get ready to sob.
And she wasn't kidding. The sonic landscape is where the genius of the track fully solidifies. Critics immediately recognized that this was not your standard pop formula.
Right.
John Mendelsohn from American Songwriter highlighted the emotional tightrope of the chorus, describing it as melancholy yet hopeful. But the real mechanical breakdown comes from Tom Brahan, at Stereogum.
Yeah, Brahan's analysis is brilliant because he explains how the music creates that feeling of being trapped.
Yeah.
He noted that the lyrics flawlessly parallel the plot of the film, but musically, the song is an exercise in the deliberate denial of catharsis.
That is the crucial mechanism.
Yeah.
Because think about the structure of a standard emotional pop ballad.
Yeah.
It starts quiet, builds tension in the pre-chorus, and then just explodes in the final chorus.
Dramatic moment.
Exactly. The drums kick in, the vocals soar, the chords resolve perfectly. It gives the listener a massive booming release of tension. But Brahan pointed out that What Was I Made For constantly feels like it's building toward that grand cathartic finale, but it actively refuses to give it to you.
It just holds back.
The tension is held indefinitely.
Right, the chords feel like they're just left hanging in midair.
Yeah.
Eilish keeps her vocals in that incredibly close, breathy register right at the exact moment your brain expects her to start belting.
Yes, she pulls back when you expect her to push forward.
By withholding that traditional pop release, the song forces you to just sit in the discomfort. It leaves the central question, what was I made for? Entirely unanswered. And that unresolved tension is exactly what makes the song feel so tragic.
And that sense of theatrical tragedy brings us to a really remarkable observation by John Campbell from WNYC and Gothamist.
This blew my mind.
Yeah, when dissecting the melodic structure of Eilish's verse, Campbell realized it bears a striking, almost undeniable similarity to the chorus of Stephen Sondheim's legendary Broadway standard, Send in the Clowns.
I went and listened to them back to back, and the musical DNA is absolutely there. But, let's explain why that matters for a second.
Right, context is important here.
Send in the Clowns is arguably the greatest song ever written about bitter regret, missed opportunities, and just the cruel irony of life. It utilizes a very specific melodic structure, these slow, descending intervals that inherently sound like a heavy sigh.
A musical sigh, yeah.
By utilizing a similar melodic shape for a song about a Barbie doll, Eilish and Finneas elevated a corporate soundtrack to the level of high theatrical tragedy.
It is a devastating musical choice, and yet defying every single conventional rule about what makes a massive, chart-topping pop hit. Audiences connected with that unresolved tragedy on an unprecedented scale.
It really did.
The commercial performance was just staggering. It wasn't just a critical darling, it was a global behemoth.
The numbers are wild for a song this quiet. I mean, it hit #1 in the UK, Australia, Ireland, and Switzerland. It peaked at number 14 on the highly competitive U.S. Billboard Hot 100, and it absolutely dominated the U.S. adult pop airplay and hot rock and alternative songs charts.
Just massive reach.
We're talking multi-platinum certifications across the globe, including diamond status in France and Brazil.
But the true measure of its legacy isn't even just the chart positions, it's the industry validation. It dominated the most prestigious arenas of the awards season.
Swept them.
It took home the Golden Globe for Best Original Song. It won the Academy Award for Best Original Song. And then it faced the ultimate proving ground, the 66th Annual Grammy Awards,
where it pulled in 5 nominations, including Record of the Year. It easily won Best Song Written for Visual Media, but the crown jewel, the moment that secured its place in music history, was winning the Grammy for Song of the Year.
And to understand the magnitude of that win, we have to look at the history of that specific category. What Was I Made For became the very first song originating from a film to win Song of the Year since 1999. Do you know what the last one was?
Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On from Titanic,
Yep.
which is the ultimate irony. You have Celine Dion's Track, which is the absolute definition of maximum ocean-splitting, belt-it-to-the-rafters musical catharsis.
The biggest release possible.
Right, and right next to it in the history books, sharing the exact same rare achievement, is Eilish's Track. A quiet, breathy, unresolved sigh of a song that actively denies the listener that exact same release. It just proves that you do not need volume to create a monumental cultural impact.
It proves that emotional resonance operates completely independently of volume or origin. The fact that the song was commissioned to sell toys and movie tickets didn't diminish its artistic weight. The contrast actually amplified it.
It really did.
Organizations ranging from the Hollywood Music and Media Awards to the Society of Composers and Lyricists, they all universally recognized that Eilish and Finneas had achieved something extraordinary within the confines of a commercial assignment.
Which really brings this entire journey full circle. We started by asking how a piece of plastic could inspire such an intensely human confession.
Right.
And the answer, as we've seen through the psychology of her writer's block, the visual metaphor of the music video and those unresolved mechanics of the melody, is that sometimes you need a proxy to trick yourself into telling the truth.
The song transcended its commercial origins because it bypassed the specifics of a toy and tapped into a universal anxiety. It asks the questions everyone grapples with. Am I just playing a part? Who am I when the expectations are stripped away?
Yeah.
The feeling of being manufactured and packaged for consumption isn't exclusive to dolls and boxes. It is a defining anxiety of the modern human condition, especially in a world heavily dictated by curated digital identities. Eilish spoke for a piece of plastic, and in doing so, she spoke for millions of people.
It is a profound reminder that the mask you wear might be the only thing that lets you drop your guard. So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today.
Hmm.
The next time you're watching a massive corporate blockbuster or a commercial or any highly commissioned piece of branded art, don't just write off the music as a slick, soulless product. Listen closely to the lyrics. Pay attention to where the melody refuses to resolve, because you never know when an artist, hiding behind the safety of a fictional assignment, accidentally left a piece of their own unguarded soul right there on the track, hidden in plain sight.
That's a great way to look at it.
Thanks for listening to People Out Pod. Keep tuning in for more stories worth knowing.